Hello everyone. This story is about, what if God-like Naruto was able to feel other people's emotions and fall in love with Mei and Anko? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I've uploaded. Now let's start. As the gold light shined upon the earth, destroying everything within its majestic presence, what was seen differed from person to person. Mei, considered one of Konoha's greatest jonin, watched the youthful destroyer of armies with the most serious expression anyone had ever seen him wear, ever. Mei had watched with the utmost respect and gratitude as a warrior, an angel of God, maybe even a god himself, did what many couldn't. Not only was the thought of destroying armies with a single attack absurd, but the fact that anyone could take that burden upon themselves, with a smile nonetheless, was something only a few could accomplish. The fact that 1,000 lives were taken by your own hands broke most. That respect he was feeling was because he remembered. He remembered the one thing Uzumaki Naruto said that he hadn't believed with all his heart. But now he did, he believed, he was a believer. Mei saw a promise being kept. Akimichi Choji, a genin most believed couldn't make it in the shinobi world, watched as the bright, golden light shined its might upon those who wished to burn heaven. He watched as someone who believed in him gave the world, a reason to believe in the bringer of hope. The young Akimichi never liked the thought of death, but right now, at this very moment, death had never looked so beautiful. Never before had he ever seen such lovely murder in his life. The very thought was frightening. Murder, slaughter, death, these were things that should never be beautiful or majestic, but he couldn't take his eyes away, hypnotized, memorized from the feat before him, before everyone. Akimichi Choji saw an angel, all that was missing were wings. Wings. Never before had all of the ANBU Black Ops been present in one place, but never before had there been an absolute reason to. In a blink, the entire ANBU force lined up side by side, next to the operative they considered a god, a commander, a brother. As one, the ANBU stood straighter, heads held higher, hands placed across their hearts, showing the world who they obeyed, who they followed, who they would stand by even if asked to walk through the depths of hell. The ANBU saw Hokage. Haruno Sakura, proud member of Team 7, stood still, her heart racing and her eyes wide. She had thought that sakura trees were beautiful, but with the light that outshined the sun, she knew that this was the akin to the unseen beauty of the world. It was a kind of beauty that was never supposed to be seen, those who witnessed it would never want it to go. It was like the world's unseen beauty, because it was necessary. Like oxygen, it wasn't visible, but so very necessary. And because of the necessity, it was considered beautiful, or at least it was in her family. Haruno Sakura saw necessary beauty. Mitarashi Anko, snake summoner and jonin of Konoha, watched with glazed eyes, as her lover, her man, did what made her fall in love with him in the first place. He was saving her, saving everyone, from wickedness. He was protecting what was his, Konoha. Her heart beat faster and faster, witnessing the fall of an army. Mitarashi Anko saw her knight in shining armor do what he was born to do, protect. Hatake Kakashi, ANBU legend and second greatest jonin of Konoha no Sato, watched with his precious Sharingan in awe at the gilded destruction. His eye gifted to him from his best friend was capable of only seeing a portion of what the technique was. He had heard about the Tsuchikage Jin-tun, but he knew, even without seeing the dust release, that this was far superior. It didn't destroy on a molecular level, it completely erased from the earth. It was pure, unmatched carnage. He saw the back of his sensei's son's back, watching as he joined his father in the nightmares of Konoha's enemies. Hatake Kakashi saw his sensei within the bringer of hope. Terumi Mei, Dame Mizukage of Kirigakure no Sato, watched as her lover, her man, destroyed the destroyers. She had never before seen such a brutal, powerful attack. The gilded carnage made everything she was capable of seem like child's play. She was of a different village, a different nation, she should have been terrified of the gold-covered shinobi before her, the entirety of Konoha's ANBU at his side. But she just couldn't feel fear towards him. She was his, she belonged to him now. She knew it, he knew it, hell even Anko knew it. Nothing mattered now, Konoha and Kiri were allies and what she saw in front of her brought happiness to her heart. She was the Mizukage, and he would most definitely become the Hokage one day. Terumi Mei saw peace between nations. Yuzuki Yugao, ANBU captain of Rohan, the Hokage's personal elite, watched the golden pillar from heaven descend upon the enemies of Konoha to her brother's left. Being one of the many, or all ANBU that stood with him. She watched as her brother screamed, shouted, cried at the world, demanding to be noticed, to be heard. He was done with people doubting him, treating him like he wasn't a monster, like he wasn't the god that he was. She saw her brother stand against those who wished harm on his people, his home, with a monstrous smile marring his face, his slit, gilded eyes filled with excitement. She saw as her brother became something he loved being. Yuzuki Yugao saw her Atuto wake, and show the world what a monster really looked like. Nara Shikamaru, genin of the genius Nara clan and son of the greatest tactician since the Nidaime Hokage, watched as the world's greatest monster fell the army that wished to burn Konoha to ashes. His life had been a lazy one, his prodigious mind not caring to be seen like something more than he was. He was a quiet slacker, looking for brilliance in the world around him. And at this moment, he was witnessing what he had looked for his entire life. The majestic, golden light that shined down from the heavens like an angry god, washing the lands of the darkness that plagued it, was, in a word, brilliance. Nara Shikamaru saw the wrath of Konoha, the brilliant, ingenious wrath. Gekko Heiate, skilled Tokubetsu Jonin and fiancé of the Bringer of Hope's sister, watched the world's greatest shinobi do what he did best. There was no doubt in his mind that the Bringer of Hope would protect Konoha from every threat, foreign or domestic. He saw as his brother-in-law did what he had to for the safety of their people, his fiancé standing alongside him. It was an amazing sight, watching a god crush demons with the entirety of the ANBU standing by him. It was awe-inspiring. Gekko Heiate saw the unifying force that was the Bringer of Hope. Anoki, Sandaime Tsuchikage of Iwagakure no Sato, was forced to watch as his army, his people, were slaughtered in an instant, in a blink of an eye. He watched as the sky opened and the gods roared. He watched as the son of a butcher became the butcher. He couldn't break free from whatever it was holding him down. He didn't want to call it what he knew it was, because that would mean it was true, it would mean that the very angels were under the boy's if he was truly a boy command. Anoki saw the heavens open angrily, and then, he saw them speak. Jiraiya, the toad sage of Mount Myaboku and legendary Sannin, watched with an expressionless face. On the inside, he was just as still. He was seeing Minato's son do just as he did. The baby that he held in his arms was carving his name into the soil, imprinting his name in history as a legend, as a god that would destroy the world if asked by his commander. He was witnessing his godson take off the mask he wore, showing the world the monster, the absolute power heaven commanded. He smiled. Jiraiya saw a monster that he was proud to call family. Uchiha Sasuke, student of the Bringer of Hope, watched his Shursho with a wicked smirk on his face. This was what, at least to them, living was for. He knew that his sensei was awake, and that he was enjoying every second of it. His people were behind him, his ANBU comrades beside him, it was truly a sight that would be remembered. He felt the power, the heat behind the blast. He watched with excited eyes as his sensei showed the world why Konoha was considered the greatest of the five. He watched as his sensei showed the world what was to come. Uchiha Sasuke saw the introduction of monsters to the world. God help them all. Hokage-sama has named you the acting Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. Mito Kato Hamura announced. As of this moment, you are the Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. He continued. Lead our village well. Naruto was standing among the village council, a mixture of shinobi and civilians. It had been a few hours since Naruto sent the IWA army into oblivion, and a lot had transpired since. His first act was to free the Tsuchikage. Hiruzen wanted him to live. He was to watch, to witness both the absolute power of Konoha, and its mercy. Konoha, even though they didn't have to, wanted peace, not dominance. They couldn't, however, allow the trespasses against their village to go unpunished. They were, no matter how peaceful, a shinobi village, and shinobi had to do the ugly work that protected the people. Now, with so many of the Tsuchikage's men killed, and his life spared, IWA, and all of Tsuchi no Kuni, would know that if they chose to defy the treaty between them, they would be demolished. Hokage-sama, Yudatane Koharu, an elderly woman, began. I must ask, what exactly was that technique you used on the foolish IWA shinobi? Her face was serious. She knew more about the Kamikage than most, along with her fellow elder, as they were Hiruzen's oldest friends and teammates. She had no problem accepting Uzumaki Naruto as the Hokage, he was the best answer. He was the son of the Yondaime, said to be the greatest of the Hokage. He was Nezumi, the greatest ANBU operative Konoha had ever had. He housed multiple bijou, and apparently had full control over them all. He had been given the position by the Sandaime, a man who would slit his throat with a smile on his face if it meant saving the village. He was the student of Jiraiya of the Sannin and Hitaki Kakashi, a powerful shinobi renowned for his skill. Yes, the elders respected the bringer of hope, seeing him as the best shinobi fit for the Hokage mantle. Naruto smirked, liking the title and how curious everyone seemed to be in his nation killer. He began. Hokage-sama asked me to create a technique that would ensure that Konoha stayed safe. If a shinobi army reached our walls, I was to activate the technique and eradicate the forces. He paused. And if they were to ever breach our walls and take the village from us, I was to crush Konoha. The eyes of the counselors widened. You developed a jutsu to destroy your own home? Koharu asked. Her wrinkled skin wrinkled further, her brow furrowing. Naruto sighed, but nodded his head nonetheless. Hi, he continued. Heaven is only heaven if God is in possession of his throne, is it not? He asked, rhetorically. Heaven shall only belong to God, and that is the simple fact. Koharu looked to Homura, the two gulping slightly before the conversation was continued. What exactly was it, Hokage-sama? Hyuga Hayashi asked, showing his approval of the decision of Hokage. Naruto smiled, nodding at the man in thanks for his subtle approval. Senpo, Tenmei, and I know Dan, Naruto began his explanation, is a technique only I can use. He decided to get everything out on the table. When I first joined the ANBU, I encountered Yotan no Rashi and Han of IWA. Koharu and Homura nodded, Hiruzen having told them as much. I was able to kill Rashi, but before he died, he made sure Han was able to escape. The council was silent. A little scared of the blonde now that they knew he killed an experienced Jinchuriki when he was so young. When a Jinchuriki dies, the Biju's chakra slowly dissipates, taking many years to pull itself back together. His hands clenched. It is a painful experience the likes of which humans could never withstand. After killing Rashi, I could feel the Yonbi's pain, and I decided to stop it. Enter Danzo. You absorbed the Biju into your seal. He thought out loud. Naruto eyed the leader of the foundation with confusion. Danzo had been silent, even about Naruto taking up the Hokage mantle. And his empathy was picking up something unexpected. Danzo approved. The old war hawk saw no one, not even himself, as a better shinobi for the position. Uzumaki Naruto, the Kamikage, was a shinobi, the likes of which even Danzo knew was his better. Naruto was, even within the foundation, the ideal shinobi, the perfect ninja. Any doubt that Danzo had about the young blonde was crushed, erased, thrown away when the mighty, 1,000-strong, IWA army was annihilated. Yes, Danzo would call Uzumaki Naruto Hokage, no matter what their past was like. He was a Konohagakure no Sato veteran, and he knew, without a doubt, that the bringer of hope was born to be the Hokage. He was actually, and this was the creepy part, happy. In his mind, a shinobi who was more than worthy finally took up the hat. Danzo would follow, to the bitter end. This changed things. Yes. He replied. After successfully absorbing the Yonbi, Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sensei asked if I could do the same with the other Biju. Danzo nodded, already knowing where this was going. So you went to Mizu no Kuni, promising to free them from the Yonde Mizukage idiocy. Danzo, contrary to popular belief, did not support Yugura's regime. It was moronic. The boy was killing off the bloodlines of his country. Danzo may be a downright devil, but he was no idiot. Konoha, and Danzo, saw the benefits of bloodlines. They were more valuable than gold in his twisted mind, and what Yugura was doing out of fear was pure stupidity. Your main objective was to kill Yugura, and take the Sambai from Kirigakure. He actually smiled. And it worked? He asked. Naruto nodded. Hi, he started. The Sambai is within the seal as well. He was the acting Hokage right now, he couldn't let his personal dislike for the root leader influence him. He was not Uzumaki Naruto right now, he was the Hokage of Konoha. And all three Biju willingly obey you? He asked. Danzo was very excited. Uzumaki Naruto was even greater than the Yondaime. Naruto ignored how the question was worded. The Biju have agreed to fight alongside me. He began to explain. It was time for the world to know where he stood. I am a vessel for the Biju. All are welcomed, and all are my family. Danzo was silent. Every Biju. Under the command of Konoha. Yes, Danzo was sure that Naruto was the greatest Kage born. Hopefully Hiruzen would never wake up. Getting back to the actual question, Naruto started. After absorbing the Sanbai, I incorporated the chakra of the Sanbai, Yanbi, the Kyubi, and my own natural energy. He smirked. I sent our chakra into the atmosphere, and kept it there, so that if something, like what just transpired, happened, I could act accordingly. He then explained further. The Bija chakra acts as sights, directing my sage dust to a specific point. After the target is within the sights, I unleash the built-up energy. The council was silent, processing the information. Then, a courageous shinobi by the name of Yamanaka Inoichi spoke up, asking the question everyone wanted to know. Hokage-sama, he too approved of the Uzumaki as the Hokage, the rumors that you fought the Shinigami. He paused before continuing. Are they true? He couldn't look into the blue eyes of the acting Hokage. Naruto sighed. He was so naive. Yes, I fought the death god for Sandaime-sama's soul. He began. But, I didn't truly defeat it. But Hiruzen still lives. Koharu added, not understanding the Hokage's answer. Yes, I was able to extract Sandaime-sama's soul, but it wasn't because I was stronger than it. He explained further. The Shinigami is a being of time, a being that has roamed the universe since the beginning of life. He shook his head. There's no way, at my current strength, that I could truly defeat such a powerful entity. So then how is Hiruzen still alive? Danzo asked. Hiruzen was definitely not in working condition, but he was most definitely alive. I surprised it. Naruto answered honestly. The Shinigami has never known resistance. No matter how hard one tries, death is inevitable. For someone to defy that, to stand against him without fear, it shocked him. He chuckled. Hell, it scared him. The Shinigami had feared the bringer of hope. Naruto continued. But if we were to fight again, if I were to face him again, he would win the battle, no doubt. He had come to this conclusion after letting the Tsuchikage go. The Shinigami had more power than he did, more experience when it came to the spiritual side of things. But it was only a matter of time. Inoichi sighed in relief. It was a little scary that Naruto could actually frighten the Shinigami, but if he had truly defeated it, that would have terrified the shinobi. Every shinobi. But I freed more than just Hiruzen Gigi. The sinister smile on Naruto's face would make the devil himself take a step back. You promised. Kurama's voice called out in his head after they felt it. While sinking, they felt each other on a level that defied the mortal world. They were no longer a powerful human and a powerful bijou, they were one entity, something not human or bijou. They were transcended. I know, Kurama. Naruto replied to his partner, his brother. And I never go back on my word. The entity that was Naruto and Kurama smirked, reaching into the great gut of the Shinigami, secretly pulling out a legend. Suddenly, there was silence, the kind that stung the ears. Suddenly, there was no Shinigami, no world-shaking battle of wills, nothing. And then, from the silence, a whisper of a voice spoke. And Naruto? They smiled. The door to the council chamber slowly opened, and Naruto smirked. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto was adept at producing the impossible. The moment he walked into the room, Hatake Kakashi and Jiraiya of the Sannin on each side of him, the council lost their breath. Their eyes went wide, and their hearts stopped. The shock in the room was almost palpable, and even the stoic Shimura Danzo was not capable of hiding his surprise. This was impossible, even for someone like the Kamikage. Council of Konoha, I, Uzumaki Naruto, hereby step down from the Hokage position, and move to reinstate this man, this legend, as Hokage once more. He smiled, looking at the sun-kissed hair and azure orbs of the man before them. The fastest man alive, my father, Namikaze Minato. Standing in the middle of two of the world's current most famous shinobi was the shinobi, the most famous man to have lived. He was the greatest shinobi from Konohagakure no Sato, and his name still struck fear into the men and women who even had the pleasure of glimpsing at his skill, his ability. He was faster, stronger, smarter, better than all other shinobi before, and after for the matter, him. He would have gone unopposed if it weren't for his son, a shinobi that had joined his father as a truly fearful monster. He was Namikaze Minato, the yellow flash of Konoha. He was back. How? Hamura asked. The Yondaime Hokage smiled. Well, he began, it's kind of a strange story. He replied with his right hand scratching the back of his head with a sheepish expression. Hey, Tusan. Naruto smiled a monstrous, terrifying smile that made the great yondaime gulp a little. What's going on? He asked, pushing past a small shiver of fear, before pushing it off, knowing that this person was his son no matter what. Why are you here? He was fearful still of this, though. Were you sealed within the Shinigami? His voice was even a little shaky. No matter how powerful a man was, no matter how battle-hardened, a father was terrified when it came to their children's safety. A good man, anyways. Naruto, or was he Kurama, he still couldn't tell, smiled again, revealing their sharpened teeth. It was truly a sinister smile for a monster. Nah, they began, I'm here to save Hiruzanjiji. Minato had felt the Sandaime's presence a few minutes ago, but even that was being drowned out by the overwhelming feeling of raw, godlike chakra that was all around him, like it was engulfing him in its light. How a presence could be so warm and bright also feel so cold and dark was beyond him. Again, a terrifying smile marred his son's face. And I promised a friend that I would return something that belonged to him. Naruto's gilded arm. Minato just realized that his son looked like he was on fire with orange and yellow, reached out and touched his chest. Kurama, the Kyubi no Kitsune, a force of nature, or more appropriately, a destroyer of nature, closed his eyes. He had waited for so long, 13 years to be exact, for this moment. He considered himself Naruto's friend, his partner. But now, as Naruto fulfilled his promise to him, he swore his loyalty, his everything to the human. He took another few moments to let it all sink in, and when he was sure everything was finished, his eyes shot open, the bloody crimson slits greeting the world. A world he would burn to ashes if Naruto asked. Kurama then did something he hadn't done, not like this at least, in years. He slammed his powerful arms on the ground, his powerful legs following, and raised his proud head. He opened his giant maw, and sucked in as hard and long as he could, and then he roared. Kurama roared at the world, the Shinigami, IWA, any enemy of Naruto's. He roared at the heavens, demanding they obey Naruto, demanding that the world listened. Naruto's chakra peaked. The mortals had to have at least turned their heads toward him, they demanded it. Kurama was whole again. Tusan, Naruto's voice called out, snapping the hypnotizing feeling he was put under. I'm not a very selfish person. He could tell that his son's voice sounded desperate. But may I be a little? Just this once? Minato, a man who loved the idea of fatherhood, swallowed hard, holding back the tears. His son, his child was asking him if he could have something. He wished Kushina was here. Hi, Naruto, he said, you can. Naruto's gilded, slit eyes met his father's blue ones, and kept them for a few seconds, before Minato felt pain, the likes of which he'd never felt before. But he was a soul, he didn't have a physical body to feel pain. His eyes opened, when had he closed them? And he saw black. He could feel the shock, the almost religious emotions coming from the council. Konoha was, and this was not arrogance but fact, invincible with 2 yellow flashes. One was enough to end entire wars in the blink of an eye, but 2. I then told Jiraiya-sensei and Kakashi and II to help Tusan. I knew that the Hokage's body is always preserved, and if I concentrated on the healing factor, I could make his body operational again when I sent his soul. Naruto explained. It took a few hours to get him up and going again, but it worked. He looked at his father. I brought him back. Naruto knew that if he used the healing factor twice, he'd undoubtedly die, so he could only use it on his father, knowing that his body was in worse condition than his Gigi's. But now, they had to figure out how they could heal the Sandaime, who was still in critical condition, only holding on by the strength of his will. Minato smiled at his son. This was still confusing to him, but he was just so happy to be with his child that he couldn't really care. Jiraiya cleared his throat before speaking. Minato knows nothing of the shinobi world now, and even though I don't doubt his skill, we need someone who can fulfill the needs of the village as of now. He started, getting the look from his godson. Sorry kid, but you know it's true. He turned back to the council. And Naruto is needed in the field, especially with the Akatsuki getting so active. He shook his head. None of us, even Kakashi, are able to commit to the title. We need someone who can dedicate everything to the job. Koharu frowned. She, and just about everyone on the council, in the village, the country even, would love to have any of these 4 legends as the Hokage, but Jiraiya was right. If there was an organization out there that even someone like Jiraiya was wary of, then it wasn't something they could ignore. The 4 men before them needed the freedom to move around, to hunt, and the Hokage title would make that impossible. So, the aged woman asked the question on everyone's mind. And who are you suggesting? Jiraiya smirked. In his mind, it was so simple, so obvious, that there was only one person out there that was perfect for the Hokage position at this time. There was many wounded, the Sandaime being one of them, and they desperately needed a healer. Naruto, while able to at least control when his subconscious incorporated healing energies when he brought the dead back to life, was not yet able to tap into the actual method his will used. He was no medical nin, by no means. It was definitely something he'd be training in the future, but they needed someone, now. Since the Shodai, since Senju Hashirama, there has only been one medical nin whose name still makes enemies of Konoha flinch. There was only one ninja that could take the title of Hokage and lead the village in the way it needed at this point in time. She was perfect, so that's why her name left Jiraiya's tongue. Tsunade. The god of aim stood on one of the metal heads that adorned the skyscraper he used as his personal base, his fabled eyes containing wary. Yesterday, when he knew it was chakra, but admitting it made it terrifying. When the chakra, the overwhelming, omnipotent presence was pushed onto him, onto everyone, with all the delicacy of a sledgehammer, he had actually felt fear. Fear was something he was not used to, not anymore at least, and the fact that mere chakra alone made his heart pound faster than what was healthy in terror was disconcerting. There was no doubt, the presence, the terrifying feeling that clouded the entirety of the elemental continent was Uzumaki Naruto, Konohagakure's bringer of hope. Never before had he thought that the plan could be stopped, that he could be opposed by someone with greater power than he would appear. But Uzumaki Naruto was absolutely his biggest threat. There was no doubt that a battle between them would raise an entire country to the ground. And he was not as arrogant as he seemed. The self-proclaimed god knew that the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was his equal, maybe even his greater, and his odds of survival were smaller than the boys'. He needed something more, an extra edge. It gave him a nasty feeling in his stomach, but he knew it was the truth. He needed that man's assistance. He needed Orochimaru. He was silent, his breath the only noise in the small room he was shown to. He waited for the person that truly understood him, the person who truly knew what he felt. He was taught that he was a demon, but that's not what he wanted to be. He wanted to be something more terrifying. He wanted to be a monster, and Uzumaki Naruto had promised him this. Gaara waited patiently for the shinobi he now called Shursho in the room of said shinobi's lover. Flashback. A small smile found itself on the Uchiha's face, but right before he could thank his Shursho, grunts of pain were heard. The 3 shinobi turned, looking at the exhausted form before them. His sand armor was gone, now only helpless grains scattered across the forest. His eyes already had deep, black bags around them, but with the way he looked at the sky, wishing he could just fly away, made him look thoroughly exhausted. Naruto slowly walked to the downed Jinchuriki, their eyes meeting. Gaara's eyes widened. He knew what he was looking in the eye at this moment. He was looking at his death. Why did the blonde smile at him? Gaara, Naruto began. As a fellow Jinchuriki, I can say with the utmost certainty that I know how you feel. He chuckled. And even if I wasn't a Jinchuriki, I have the gift of empathy, so I could still feel it. Gaara swallowed. I can feel the pain of being hated. Gaara was silent, so Naruto continued. You feel like you don't even exist, like if you don't try everything in your power to just be, you'd disappear. He shook his head. I too felt that way, like if I went to sleep, someone else would take my place. He gave a small sigh. It's a nightmare, one that you just can't wake up from. Anko looked to the ground in shame. She may never have done anything to him as a child, but she was still a part of the village that had. Sasuke stayed silent, letting his Shursho say what he'd already heard. You feel that, if you kill, if you bathe in your prey's blood, that it somehow proves your existence. Gaara looked away, already knowing what the blonde would say. He'd heard this before. People who didn't understand him, didn't understand his pain, would talk down to him, telling him his way was wrong. Naruto smirked. And you're right. It does. Not only did Gaara's eyes widen, but so did Anko's. Wha? Gaara rasped out. The only thing I see wrong with your method is that you have no one pointing you in the right direction. Naruto looked in the general direction of his village. I've killed more people than I can remember, but what I do remember is that I liked it. He admitted. And for that, I'm a monster. He smiled. But my senseis are good men, they keep me on the right path. They don't let me hurt the innocent, and let me have my fun with the actual sinister people out there. He smiled, looking back at Gaara. I'm awake now, Gaara. I escaped that nightmare, and it feels so good. It feels better than anything you've ever experienced before. To truly open your eyes, to truly see the world through the eyes of a monster, he hardened his features. Gaara, I can do one of two things for you. Gaara stayed silent, still shocked that someone understood, that someone didn't look at him like a demon. I can end it all here. I can end your life, end the nightmare. He then smiled. Or I can teach you how to really be a monster. Sasuke smirked. Gaara was silent for a few moments, thinking it all over. He could just give up. He could let everything go. He could be done with this world, this ugly, hateful world that wished he would just give up and die. Or, he could carry on, and be something more. He could accept, and learn how to see the world, the beautiful, hope-filled world through new eyes. He could accept, and truly embrace the monster he knew he was. What about my siblings? Will you let them live? He asked, somewhat surprising Naruto. He didn't think Gaara cared for them. Whatever you chose, Gaara, I give you my word, as a fellow sacrifice, that I will spare your siblings. So long as they go quietly. Naruto had no intention of hurting someone he was tied to by the bond of pain anymore. Again, he was silent, really thinking his options over. And then, the black, jagged glass that touched the sky that littered the forest like a death trap from the Uchiha's attack on his Biju's form was truly a breathtaking sight. Gaara smirked. He was ready to be a monster. End flashback. Orochimaru was in pain, horrible, excruciating pain. His old, asinine sensei was at the top of his shit list. He hoped that the sandaime burned in that nasty gut for eternity. How dare he take his use of jutsu away? That was a fate almost worse than death. He barely had the strength to get out of that god-forsaken country, and now, with the pain he was going through, he was thoroughly pissed. And what the hell was that feeling? He had never fallen to his knees and obeyed like that before. He was forced to obey the chakra that was brought down on the world, and he had never been so scared in his life before. The very thought of obeying, of being afraid, made him mad enough to bite his own tongue off. Kabuto, he screamed, calling for his loyal assistant. Silence. Kabuto, he shouted again, and again he was met with silence. Orochimaru, a voice he wished he would never hear again, called his name from within his very room. We need to talk. The snake's yellow, vertically slit eyes met the shark-like eyes of Mizu no Kuni's greatest swordsman. If he was here, then that meant that Leader Sama sent us. The second voice made him even more wary. His eyes turned, and the Sharingan greeted him. Orochimaru gulped. Sasuke let his sensei go to the council chambers, already knowing everything ahead of time. Naruto was like that, he told Sasuke everything, no matter what it was. They were brothers, teacher and student, family, monsters. He wasn't required for the council, so he was free to do what he wanted until Naruto called for him again. That was perfectly fine with him, because there was something he had to do. He couldn't deny it anymore, he couldn't look at it as something trivial any longer. The black he saw. The hate he felt when he thought he lost her was too much to ignore. He was just going to be honest with himself now. It was about time he accepted the feelings he knew he had. It was time he accepted his desires. He was strong enough to protect them now, he could. He could love again. He admitted it now. He loved Haruno Sakura. His eyes and loyalty may belong to Naruto, but his heart was Sakura's now, as long as she would have it. He wasn't like Naruto, he couldn't feel love so clearly. He couldn't share his heart. There was only room for one, just barely, and that one was without a doubt his pink-haired, annoying teammate. He laughed to himself as he walked to where the majority of the genin were assembling to speak amongst themselves. Sakura would always be Sakura, but that actually was the way he wanted it, wanted her. He wanted to make her his. He wanted to be hers. They were shinobi, they weren't guaranteed to live for very long, and he wanted to be with her in every possible way before they took their last breaths. If possible, he'd like to take his last breath with her, to pass into the afterlife with her, holding her. He just wanted to hold her. The black was terrifying. It was so cold, so dark that he couldn't breathe. The colors just vanished. It was the most absurd, messed up thing in the world, but when the colors were gone, he just wanted to see pink. Pink, the color of her hair, it was now his favorite color. He shook his head. He was an Uchiha, the Kamikaze's apprentice, and now his favorite color was pink. It didn't matter though, he would say this proudly, with the elegance and power of a true Uchiha, because no matter what, he would protect, love, and treat Sakura the way she deserved to be treated. Like his princess, his hope, his salvation. Sasuke came into the small clearing he was told to meet everyone in, and when he saw the pink he was so in love with, he smiled. Sakura, who was sitting next to Ino and Hinata, smiled when she saw the raven-haired boy enter the clearing. He was walking straight at her, a smile on his face, and she opened her mouth to greet him. She was cut off when the boy whose name she was going to speak pressed his lips into hers, gaining the wide-eyed stares from his fellow ninja. Sakura's eyes were wide for all but 3 seconds before they closed in bliss, and she melted into her crush. Ino opened her mouth to shout indignantly, and Sasuke did not want interruptions. The two genin vanished in a swirl of leaves. After disappearing, Sasuke and Sakura reappeared in the Uchiha's empty, plain apartment. His walls were white, bare, and just generally bland. This, however, was not noticed, since the two genin cared for nothing but each other at the moment. The young Haruno's petite hands roamed the Uchiha's front side, his chest and abdomen feeling pleasingly toned for someone his age. His nimble hands roamed the girl's back, occasionally brushing her rear. The little moans she sent into his mouth drove him crazy. They were on the bed, his shirt already off and his hands reaching to rid her of the in-the-way clothing, only to be stopped by a red-faced Sakura. Wait, Sasuke-kun. She whispered, unsure. What's going on? Why, she let the sentence hang, but it was obvious what she meant. The raven-haired boy was silent for a moment before he smiled, something the pink-haired girl was not used to from him, a genuinely happy smile. When I lost my family, Sakura flinched, I made sure to rid myself of love. I never wanted to feel that again. I never wanted to love someone so that I'd never have to feel the pain of losing them again. He didn't care how weak he sounded right now. He needed her to know. But I was shown a different way. Again, Sasuke smiled at the girl underneath him. Naruto helped me gain the power to protect the ones I love. But why me? She asked weakly. She had been ignored and made fun of by him until recently. Their little dinner date was dreamy, but they hadn't even kissed. At the end of it, she felt as if it was something he was forced to do. It was somewhat humiliating. By the time I gained this power, this drive to love, I had already pushed everyone away. All that was left was desperate fangirls. Sakura's blush intensified, knowing that she had been one of his biggest fangirls before Naruto talked some sense into her. That meant that either you, or Ino, were my only choice. Sakura looked a little hurt. Had he chose her randomly? I chose neither, because love is something I believe is important. Sakura narrowed her eyes in confusion. Sasuke continued. But then I was shown that, unlike Ino who likes me for my looks and whatever else she likes me for, you, Sakura, he leaned down, his breath tickling her ear. You actually love me, he whispered into said ear, and, by unknown means, I have fallen in love with you, too. Sakura was silent, so he continued. During the invasion, I thought you died. This shocked the kunoichi. I broke inside. He admitted. I felt so cold, so dark, and I just wanted to hold you, for you to be alive. He brought his left hand up and placed it on her head. And now that I have that chance, I'm never going to let go of you, he finished. Sakura didn't say anything. She just lifted her arms and allowed Sasuke to pull her blouse up and over her head. Sakura had small, almost non-existent breasts that she was very self-conscious about. Sasuke's onyx eyes roamed her milky skin, not the bit disappointed at what he saw. A woman's body, no matter what shape or size, was beautiful, and Sakura was no exception. A wet tongue rubbed one of the cherry blossom's pink nipples, eliciting a pleasured moan. Sasuke and Sakura lost themselves in each other's flesh. Now, Naruto had never thought that this particular situation would ever pop up in his life, and he was sure that he'd rather it be that way. However, it was happening, and there was nothing the seven shinobi, including him, could do about it. It was indeed an awkwardness that he had never thought possible, since key factors for said awkwardness were missing for 13 years. He only had himself to blame, though. His own knack for the impossible was what created this situation. It wasn't like he didn't want what was currently happening to happen, he just didn't quite know what to do with it. Yugao's death glare wasn't helping any, neither was Erosenen's perverted, smug grin that was mirrored by Kakashi Nii in the form of his signature eye smile. Hyuga wasn't any help either, his fear of his fiancée's retribution causing him to hold his tongue. Kurama, his first and greatest friend, was roaring in hysterical laughter at his predicament, and that was perhaps the least annoying thing. His father had been introduced, and after the good 2 hours of shock and explanations, they had finally been able to get to the reason behind why the 7 of them were gathered, or reasons, that is. The Kamikage had completed, flawlessly, over 100 S-rank missions, and he had done so without fear. He was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, a battle-hardened warrior by the time he was old enough to officially join the Shinobi Academy. All of his feats, his accomplishments were nothing compared to this, nothing. It was a little nerve-wracking, and it made him think if this was what everyone felt like when in a possible life-or-death situation. His father, to his credit, just sat on the sofa in Yuga's apartment, giving the gathered men and women a polite smile. On the inside, however, he was trying his best to hide the shock and extreme blush that threatened to make its way onto his face. Naruto finally stood from his sitting position next to his father, deciding to just get it over with and see what came of it. There was truly no other way. Dad, Naruto began, waving his arm towards the 2 women who were sitting on another sofa. I'd like to introduce you to Mitarashi Anko and Terumi Mei. He gave his father a sheepish smile, obviously a little uncomfortable with what he was about to say next. They're my lovers. Minato blushed harder than a schoolgirl. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.